Well, they really want to grocery store, they have an occasion, but they seem to sell out very fast.
Everybody's.
I don't feel any sense at all of that. Well, people tell me that I shouldn't keep a wine more than a week or two open or something like that. I think it's like keeping the store warm, so probably. But I'm not sure I would notice it. Oh, well, yeah. I'm talking about aging gets like 2 weeks later. Yeah, the aging in the Raleigh, that's kind of, well, that's what all the time is. When you're into, of course, I can sure tell that some of the most expensive items are just rare. And they're long past the best approved date.
That's what we got.
Don't pursue the court in those ways.
I meant to text him around you today. Because it says it might come with you. It's so nice. So this is just how it is with her. Is she doing okay?
Much larger group. Oh, I don't know, I'm not a member, so I don't know. Actually, I was going to somebody wanted to keep this on the board, but they remember you wanted What? Well, I always take people that kept running away from me. The church has changed since and I prefer it was to start with, sort of gradually take away. But then I discovered that despite very different, stretch a little deeper, there's a certain kind of Christian people who do. And the ones that, James and
well, that's what happened.
the one thing I particularly noticed is Jane, of course, is always a recruiting sign.
Sorry, back out and then on my way out.
But the thing is,
Oh yeah, this is like your color.
good morning. Historically, the Unitarian started out as kind of rationalist.
drive more connection.
They don't get mine. You're not supposed to call it social church. I just recently ran across well, influential, reminding me of some things that I already know, and think it's really a huge split in the Catholic Church. It's a very big chance. And you know, so you go all the way from groups like Opus Dei up to
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'd like to introduce our president. We'll just sat down.
I'm kind of a up and down person. I go up and down. I'm very happy to be with you all this morning. I'm going to follow this time. I'm Abby Thompson, president of the fellowship this year. Thank you. Welcome to everybody. Come, whoever you are, holding various beliefs, whatever your skin color, whatever your age or gender identity, whatever your abilities, whomever you love. You're welcome in the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Statesboro. You're welcome in this, our religious home. And this morning, I'd like to welcome some guests or visitors that we have this morning. If you're willing to share your name with us now, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to you. What do you want to say about that? Good morning. We have, I think, some returning guests. And later in our service, we'll have a time where you can sort of mingle with one another and get to know one another a little bit better. For the month of November, during our offertory, half of the plate that is not designated as your pledge will be shared with the Give Away the Plate arm of the Unitarian Universalist, I didn't do my homework this morning, social community, service community that seeks to provide aid to people who are in need through different means, networks and partnerships that seek to provide help if you are, for example, cleaning up after Halloween and things of that nature. Now I'll invite you to join in our congregational affirmation. It is on the wall. Love
is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is this prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
I'll turn it back over to Michael, who is going to worship with us. Thank you.
I'm glad to be here this morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be your worship leader. I'm really more nervous than I look. Let's start with our chalice lighting. We'll start with the congregational affirmation.
Did that one?
Oh, okay, we don't have a report from the stewardship committee this morning. So now, we're here at the chalice. This is our chalice of love and life, uniting us all by day and night. Would you lead us in song?
Rise up, proclaim thy godlike glory, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, proclaim thy godlike glory, show to us beauty,
us honor the light within one another as we greet those seated nearby.
Brother Neil, good to see you. Good day, sir. Oh, good to see you. I saw you. I think I saw you in Chile today. I was there with my sister. We've got a great piece of salmon.
We return to our seats. It's now time for the story for reading for all ages. And Abby is going to come up and read a story for us today.
So, if anybody who is young would like to come up, then you live here. This title of the book is You Are Here for a Reason by Nancy Tillman. You can see the person on top of the elephant. Puzzle pieces down the front. You are here for a reason. You certainly are. The world would be different without you, by far. If not for your hands and your eyes and your feet, the world, like a puzzle, would be incomplete. Another one here. Even the smallest of things that you do blossom and multiply beyond you. A kindness, for instance, may trickle for days, or set things in motion in different ways. It travels much further than you'll ever know. Under the treetops, over the snow, if we're lucky. Until it's wandered and fluttered and floated and twirled, making things happen all over the world. You're here for a reason. It's totally true. You're part of the world that is counting on you. So don't be too worried if some days fall flat. Good things can happen even from that. Life can be tricky. There isn't a doubt. You'll skin your knees trying to figure it out. But life works together, the good and the bad, the silly and awful, and happy and sad. To paint a big picture, we can't always see a picture that needs you most definitely. Remember that next time a day goes all wrong. To somebody else, you will always be strong. And that ball that you lose or that kite you let go could make someone's day. You just for a reason. If you think you're not, I would just say that perhaps you forgot. A piece of the world that is precious and dear would surely be missing if you weren't here. If not for your smile, or your laugh, or your heart, this place we call home would be miles apart. Thank goodness you're here. Thank goodness. Times two. I can't imagine a world without you. And that's the present. Put together. All the parts. You are love. And that is
Thank you, Abby. That was lovely. Now, we could all let's all do, will the children please stand and lead the congregation in saying our affirmation together? We are Unitarian Universalists, people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. Please rise in body and spirit and sing the children processional as those along the aisle make our bridge for the children to walk through. Before we go into our minute of meditation, that I would share a quote that I came across recently. Pablo Picasso is quoted as saying, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." Please join me for a moment of silent meditation. Our speaker this morning is Dr. Chris Brown from Georgia Southern University. And all week long people have been saying, oh, this is going to be a good talk, so I'm just going to let you come on up and start.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to speak here today. This is the second time I have been here. The last time I was here to speak about Buddhist ethics and environmental stewardship. Today I'm happy, yet a bit concerned, to be speaking on my actual primary research, which is called democratic purgatory. The title's a little heavy, but I think publishers seem to like it that way. The context of democratic purgatory was something that came to me in graduate school many years ago when I was at FIU in Miami, and it seemed to me that there was a lot of deep commitment to the concepts of democracy, and particularly liberal democracy in the Caribbean region, which is where I do a lot of my research. But the democratic quality was so poor, and so you wonder, like, at what point would people get just so tired of having a fully functional democracy that wasn't really representative, and And then how would they get rid of that democracy? Right? So the values are deeply embedded in the people, but at the same time, the government or the style of government, the spirit of government that they appreciate wasn't working for them. And then, unfortunately, although fortunately for me, Venezuela went through a very similar situation in which they voted out their democracy. And so this became the idea for me to look at this question of democratic purgatory. So, what would it take for people to vote out their democracy? Right? So this becomes the nightmare scenario for folks like me who do work on democratization, comparative democratization. My primary objective is to sort of, I should give you a little bit of a small backstory that might help. Before I graduated with a bachelor's in political science from the University of Florida until the University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, born and raised in Philadelphia. And after I completed my bachelor's degree, I worked in politics. And so I became the political director for Montgomery County, which you guys probably watched on the news as in and around Philadelphia, one of those blue areas. At the time, it wasn't so blue. I'd like to think that some of my work helped to make it more so. And as a result of that, I worked through politics significantly before I went to graduate school. So I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone who knows about campaign management, particularly from the street level. I teach a graduate course at Georgia Southern on how to win a political campaign, and it's really no textbooks. It's just really how to do it, like brass tacks down to the numbers. So for me, like to look at this sort of thing as this nightmare scenario is how would these things break down? So this becomes the beginning of my research on democratic purgatory. The ABCs of consolidated democracies, and it's important to recognize that when I'm talking about democratic purgatory, we're talking about consolidated democracies, which are consolidated liberal democracies, right? Where people see it as the only game in town, right? So people act as if, right? So there's a sense of a loyal opposition, there's an adherence to the rule of law, right? So the book that I wrote last year was Failed Democracies in Latin America and the Caribbean, and I was looking at a few cases where Venezuela is a heuristic case study to show how this came about. So the current research, this book came out last year. Today I just want to sort of talk a little bit about democratic purgatory and bridge the gap into the book that's coming out next year, which is where we compare Latin America to Eastern Europe. This is the book with Paul Grave, where it really talks about the regimes can be consolidated under a particular way in which facilitates a potential breakdown. So I'll pound that out a little bit. In the literature, when we look at how democracy is crafted, there's a series of stages that are engaged in sort of the research to talk about when you go from transitions into consolidation. So I'll be somewhat brief with this part because we really want to get to the part that isn't covered in the literature, right? When we look at non-democratic regimes, there's sort of a prior regime that gives us the breakdown, how things might go. There's hardliners, softliners involved in sort of there's a negotiation process. All democracies start with some sort of pact, and then there's a breakdown in that. During the transition, it could break down again, which would be a failed transition. If it completes the transition, then it's a post-transition failure, which then is a democratic experiment. Many times these are good learning opportunities for folks who fail and they figure out how to fix it the next time when they go through this process. So there might be no authoritarianism, comes back in, and then they work on how to fix this. And then there's consolidation with two outcomes. There's either a democratic breakdown, which in the literature is done by non-democratic forces. In other words, it's anti-democratic forces that take over in an anti-democratic means, right? There's a method, there's a coup, right? There's a conquest, or there's a consolidated regime. And consolidated regimes are supposed to be continued to deepen those ABCs. As we repeat these patterns, we are what we repeatedly do. And then we engage in a socialization to teach people the right way to do it. So under the scenario, there's no room for this situation where it would fail this way. And democratic purgatory provides a category, conceptual category, which allow for, through constitutional means, people elect to overthrow their existing political system due to flaws in the structural representation, which stems from a structural inflexibility that has come about through democratic consolidation. So, for the sake of time, I'll be quick. I'll be happy to share more information about any of this stuff as we go. But Venezuela becomes the heuristic case study. Venezuela had a vibrant liberal democracy based on the Pact of Punto Fijo in 1958 that operated up until Chavez. Chavez ran on a platform to overthrow this democracy. He attempted a coup, which was unsuccessful. The Venezuelan people were deeply committed to the constitutional principles, and they would not accept a coup at that point in time, even regardless of how unpopular the government was. Chavez had to come back within the legitimate structure to be able to change it, and he did so running specifically on a campaign of getting rid of that government, right? Venezuela becomes the shining example of a Latin American democracy. This is how it's supposed to work until it doesn't, right? The basis for Punto Fijismo is a adherence to the oil rents. So what would happen is money, the parties essentially that had taken over were basically moderate parties that refused to engage on the right or the left. They wanted to try, they actually attempted to disengage both of those. And when they came to power, they used the oil rents to bolster their own position. So it was essentially a clientelist state, but there was so much abundance that they were able to pay for many things. So there was a whole lot of people who basically supported the democracy because of what they get, not because the democracy was inherently good in and of itself. When that money fails to come in and commitments can't be made, and people chose to vote out that democracy. There's also some of the people who were left outside of this deal, the very poor, gravitated to the charismatic leadership of Hugo Chavez. So it becomes a remarkably stable regime over the course of time, but ultimately it's so stable, it's brittle. And so when those challenges come about and are able to be met, Venezuela ultimately chose Chavez. Right? One of the key moments where the existing regime loses significant legitimacy was a thing called the Purgatory, where essentially Venezuelans had come to believe that oil rents and cheap gas subsidies were part of something that was part of their birthright. So they felt that they should have this. And when those subsidies increased, the cost of the gas increased, it caused a riot that lasted several days and signified that the existing system was in trouble. And so Chavez runs on a campaign. He runs what we all see as a free and fair electoral campaign, and he wins and dismantles the existing regime, and Venezuela is a mess now. Over the course of time, we can talk about what happened to Venezuela since then. We talk about a lot of crime and kleptocracy. But the other theory, so when you have a theory that you're attempting to build some sort of theory, the way that I worked on this was looking at the heuristic case study. Well, here's a clear example of something's going on here. And then try to find other examples of these things to help to build out the theory. So this is what's called building in the serial. You take a series of things and you build them up till you get to the theory. So in looking at a couple other examples, and again, I'll be happy to talk about this during the course of time, Colombia went through extreme violence throughout most of its history, largely led by sort of oligarchical bosses, if you will. If you guys have ever seen the movie Encanto, there's a little glimmer of this, right? Abuelo is I don't ruin it for anybody, but this is the Encanto story and captures one of these major conflicts between these rival warlords who are based on these moderate factions of liberal and conservative. The 1950s, they decide, you know what, we're going to stop all this stuff, and we are going to create a structure where we're the only ones allowed to play. They eliminate political parties, and it just becomes the two of them basically managing a regime, managing whatever monies are coming in for the sake of themselves. Colombia breaks apart. You have FARC, you got all these different right-wing paramilitary groups that take over different areas of Colombia. And we could talk about Colombia as operational only within a certain area around Bogota, right? And maybe some of the connecting regions that get closer to the Caribbean. But even some of those have been infiltrated by right-wing militia. Nicaragua is a different example of it. Nicaragua was capturing the regime from below. Ortega, and what's known as Orteguismo. It's a sultanist type regime where he's sort of the personified leader has taken over all of these different things by managing different institutions within the government. Over the course of time, he's been able to survive because he's able to sort of link in and incorporate increasingly more chunks of the Nicaraguan government to the point where at this point he owns it all and he operates it to be able to satisfy the wealth of his very rich friends who also bolster the system. You guys seem to be drawing some comparisons. So the new book that I'm working on now is Democratic Purgatory in Latin America and Eastern Europe. And if any of you are familiar with the democratization literature, you know that as democratization folks, we always start in Latin America and then we always go directly to Eastern Europe. It's almost like a well-trodden path, right? So I'm just doing what we all did. So I'm trying to take the literature with this and trying to basically take this into this direction. Well, so again, for the sake of time, I'll be very brief. And in fact, I'll go to my preliminary findings page. I'm actually working on this book with Dr. Jacek Lubezki, who many of you, I'm sure, know. as a man about town and a great professor, and extremely, he's got the biggest brain of anyone I've ever met. You can ask him anything at all, he's going to know something. He's from Poland, and so when he read my book during the course of my tenure process, he said, "Chris, we got to work on something. We got to do something like this, because this is exactly what happened in Poland. Only Poland had a near miss, right? Which is what I was hoping to talk to you guys about today. Here is having a near miss. So Poland and Hungary essentially go through this process of, in the aftermath of the collapse of Eastern Europe and barely existing socialism, if we can call it that, in Eastern Europe. They go through a gradual transition where there's a lot of hope that this is going to make it, right? There's a lot of hope that democracy can happen in these places because of the existing social capital between these countries. And then when that hope sort of falls apart, it opens the door to right-wing populist groups who run on campaigns, again, to dismantle the regime, to change things, right? Hungary doesn't make it out. Orban, who was a politician within the system, who basically found some leverage, was able to gain access, and he's been in power since 2010. We're no longer talking about a functional liberal democracy anymore. Democratic purgatory has happened and fallen into authoritarianism. Poland has a near miss. At the end of 2023, there was the right-wing parties had captured parliament, and they were going for the coup de grace to take them out, and the existing parties, all of the coalitions of the non-right wing, joined together and barely beat them. And so the hope is that if they can maintain some momentum, that they'll be able to consolidate these gains, but we'll see. Romania is a little bit different. They didn't have that gradual change. Romania had a coup and assassinated their leader, Ceausescu. So there was much less expectations of anything going well in Romania, and perhaps because those expectations were so low, Romania has done better than anticipated. However, Russia has been very active. There's the specter, right, of Russia's been very active in Romania, and a lot of these right-wing parties now have consolidated to be able to capture a significant amount of the electorate. So with the next Romanian elections, we'll see. The existing democratic forces are down to about 27%. So we're talking about democratic purgatory. One of the big things in democratization literature is this question of democracy versus governability. Right? Governability, to me, is managing things, managing your people. Right? Where democracy is about the will of the people rising up to be able to condition the government. That general will should be the driving force. So representation should be the foundation of any good democracy. And this is where we get, it becomes governable, and then it becomes stable. Those existing clients, those parties become stable. So you can have a vibrant interaction, you can have a high quality democratic regime, but at its core, it can be very poorly functional for the sake of the structural representation. And that is that to sort of show the graph of this, if you have regimes that are legitimate or effective, and then based on this is the, again, this is one of the traditional sort of 2x2 type of graphs you do in comparative democratization. What we're looking at here is you have a dynamically stable government is one that is responsive to the will of the people, right? Where people put their demands, and then the electorate and the politicians don't do it, then we vote them out. It's okay, everybody can do this part of the game. The democratic purgatory is where the system is legitimate, is not legitimate, but it's instrumentally effective until it's not. So we're getting what we're getting. I'm supporting these politicians as party stuff until it's no longer effective. So the two important parts, the other ones are sort of just categories for that. I guess lastly, I have to say this is my contact information. If anybody has questions, if we don't get a chance to talk anymore, if you have anything. I'm in the Department of Political Science and International Studies. I'm supposed to say that I'm not speaking on behalf of Georgia Southern University today, especially in the climate that we're in. They remind us constantly, as political scientists, we're not allowed to do political science. So it's just me today, but I'll feel free to engage in questions or on any parts of this stuff. I'm happy to speak. So thank you.
We traditionally have an afterthoughts time after the service, but we're having a potluck today. But if you're willing to stay afterwards, one will feed you, and we can have a roundtable discussion here with plates of food if you're willing. don't know how to get this back to my wallet. Ah, thank you. Yes, I need that. We're about to begin our offertory. The offertory will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. Remember that half of our offerings not designated as pledges will go to the Give Away the Plate at WSC, to the service organization.
You use service committee.
Thank you, Sharon. UU service. We're going to do it quietly today. By the way, I just want to thank Abby for her input and her presence this morning. I don't know why I'm so direct today. I'm glad I'm getting right in front of you guys. These gifts are gratefully received and appreciated. Now it's time for our joys and concerns. Are there those who would like to share a special joy or concern? We invite you to do so now. You may light a candle or put a stone in the water as you care to, or you may share from your seat. And I'm not going to light a candle for you, but I'll put a stone in. We will also, I guess that's it. Anybody have any joys or concerns they'd like to share?
I'm gonna first light a candle for, I'm Abby, by the way. All the, I guess, basketball fun I've been enjoying on behalf of Amelia's participation as a basketball player. This is her first year middle school basketball team, and it's been a lot of things to accept that you don't normally get out of your comfort zone and do, but she's doing it, and I'm also sort of a traveling basketball mom, so it's been a lot of fun. And I've learned a lot about the game, so I'm just expressing the, getting out of your skin, doing something you're not necessarily comfortable doing, proud moment. And then I'm going to drop a stone on behalf of Bella Lawrence, who is home but does not come because I think her husband is very sick. I think he has had some complications from some health complications. So I just wanted to let you know that she contacted me and said to tell you all that.
My name is Mike, and I'm lighting a candle of concern for an acquaintance and a mentor. And his name is Nick Agar. He's one of the top woodturners in the world. He travels all over the world, giving lectures and teaching classes. He has much of his work in galleries and even some museums. He's also has his studio just a block away from where my studio is. Now, Nick had some very bad news just in the last few days. About half a year ago, he developed psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. That in itself is bad enough. I myself suffer from the same situation. But thanks to modern medicine and a lot of drugs, I'm able to act pretty normal and be normal. Not out of pain, that's for sure. But also, psoriasis tends to attract a lot of other illnesses, like immune diseases and a number of cancers. And my rheumatologist told me before, keep an eye, make sure you don't develop lymphoma. He developed the other, now it's esophageal cancer, and he has several tumors, and it's a very nasty cancer. He'll be flying back to Britain on Tuesday and begin treatment and assessment on Wednesday. He's in a very dangerous spot with having multiple tumors, and I don't know what prognosis will be. So I hope you will keep him in your thoughts. He's such a talented person.
One last candle for the unexpressed joys and concerns of the congregation I have this morning. I invite you now to invoke the spirit of life and love as we enter a time of prayer and reflection. May we know that we, as a community, are connected in these joys and concerns, in that way that we may look to one another for support and affirmation. May we truly cherish this time we have shared together this morning in communion with each other and with all that we hold sacred. Amen and blessed be. We're going to wrap it up with the spirit of life. Extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of the community with the fire of commitment. Peace here in our hearts until we are together again. Any announcements?
Just a friendly reminder that I'm running back and forth to the food bank again. Thanks for my help, everything. So if you got bags or egg carts, anything at all, just see me when you have them. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We might just recognize a few folks weren't able to be here last week for the annual meeting, so I want all of you to be sure to realize that Al Hackle has stepped up and will be our president of the board for the next year. He's going to be with us for another 5 weeks. And then a year after is the immediate past president.
Benediction then. Go now in peace. You are dismissed.
Well, good job.